Hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm Alden Carrow, author of North Yorkshire in verse, more to shore in poetry, which is available to buy at Amazon. This show is about slowing down, listening closely, and discovering the poetry that lives in both the extraordinary and the everyday. Each episode, I begin with a guest poem, something from the wider world of poetry that has inspired me or continues to resonate. Then I'll invite you, the listeners, to suggest future guest poems. And after that, I'll share one of my own pieces too. Today, we are exploring a theme that is woven deeply into the tapestry of the British landscape, and particularly here in North Yorkshire, the duality of military life and the natural world. Is a strange, often jarring juxtaposition. We have the regimented, steel-clad rigidity of the military, the boots, the rifles, the orders, set against the organic, chaotic and enduring softness of the moors, the meadows and the seasons. To explore this, I've chosen a poem that is perhaps the definitive work on this specific friction. It is Henry Reed's Naming of Parts. Written during the Second World War, specifically around 1942, it captures the experience of a recruit undergoing basic training, but it does so in a way that is profoundly observant, splitting the listener's attention between the lethal mechanics of a weapon and the vibrant life of a garden in spring. Before I read it, I want you to picture the scene. Imagine a training ground. It is likely cool, perhaps early morning. There is a group of recruits standing in a line, tired, perhaps bored, listening to an instructor drone on about the components of a rifle. This is a space of discipline where the mind is supposed to be focused entirely on the machinery of war. But the human mind is not a machine. It wanders, it seeks beauty, it seeks escape. Henry Reed structures this poem using two distinct voices. You have the dry, repetitive, almost rhythmic voice of the drill sergeant naming the parts of the gun. And then, weaving in and out of that, you have the internal monologue of the recruit, whose gaze has drifted past the instructor, past the rifle, to the japonica flowers and the bees in the garden beyond. It is a masterpiece of contrast, showing how life insists on continuing, blooming and buzzing, even when we are busy preparing for destruction. So here is Naming of Parts by Henry Reed. Today we have naming of parts. Yesterday we had daily cleaning. And tomorrow morning we shall have what to do after firing. But today we have naming of parts. Japonica glistens like coral in all of the neighbouring gardens, and today we have naming of parts. This is the lower sling swivel, and this is the upper sling swivel, whose use you will see when you are given your slings. And this is the piling swivel, which in your case you have not got. The branches hold in the gardens their silent, eloquent gestures, which in our case we have not got. This is the safety catch, which is always released with an easy flick of the thumb, and please do not let me see anyone using his finger. You can do it quite easy if you have any strength in your thumb. The blossoms are fragile and motionless, never letting anyone see any of them using their finger. And this you can see is the bowl. The purpose of this is to open the breech, as you see. We can slide it rapidly backwards and forwards. We call this easing the spring. And rapidly, backwards and forwards, the early bees are assaulting and fumbling the flowers. They call it easing the spring. They call it easing the spring. It is perfectly easy if you have any strength in your thumb, like the bolt and the breech and the cocking piece and the point of balance, which in our case we have not got. and the almond blossom, silent in all of the neighbouring gardens, the bees going backwards and forwards. For today we have naming of parts. There is a profound melancholy hidden beneath the wit of this poem. Reed uses the repetition of phrases, "Today we have naming of parts," to mimic the tedium of military instruction. We can almost hear the drone of the sergeant's voice, a sound devoid of emotion, purely functional. He speaks of swivels, springs and bolts. These are cold, hard objects. They are manufactured. They have a single purpose. But notice how the recruit's mind rebels against the sterility. The transition between the two worlds is seamless yet startling. When the instructor mentions the piling swivel, he adds, "which in your case you have not got." Basically, it's a comment on equipment shortages or perhaps the recruit's unreadiness. But the recruit immediately looks at the bees. The branches hold it in the gardens, their silent, eloquent gestures, which in our case we have not got. The contrast is heartbreaking. The trees possess an eloquence, a natural grace and communication that the soldiers, stripped of their individuality and forced into silence, have lost. The trees are fully themselves. The men are incomplete, waiting for parts they have not got. This was also the experience of my grandfather John. In the build-up to the critical breakouts from Alamein, the Allies were supposed to receive thousands of US mine detectors, but instead they received hundreds, and my grandfather spent the second critical battle of El Alamein crawling on his stomach searching for landmines with just the tip of his bayonet. And this was done followed by a wall of death, creeping barrage. The sensory details Reed employs are magnificent. We have the visual of the japonica glistening like coral. And coral is vibrant, organic, living. A sharp turn from the grey steel of a rifle. And then there is the tactile description of the safety catch and the thumb. The instructor demands strength and precision. In contrast, the recruit observes the blossoms, which are fragile and motionless. Nature does not require the brute strength of a thumb. It exists in a state of delicate suspension. The poem suggests that the world of war requires a hardening of the self, a callousing of the thumb and the soul, whereas the natural world thrives on fragility and gentleness. The climax of the poem, and its most famous pun, revolves around easing the spring. To the soldier, this is a mechanical action, sliding the bolt to release tension in the gun's mechanism. But to the poetic mind, spring is the season. The bees, assaulting and fumbling the flowers, are engaged in the act of pollination, the creation of life. This sexual, creative energy of the bees is contrasted against the sterile, destructive energy of the rifle. The bees are fumbling, a word that suggests imperfection, instinct and eagerness, so different from the rigid, rapidly backwards and forwards drill of the bolt. Ultimately, Reed leaves us with a sense of unresolved tension. The poem ends by listing the parts again, the bolt, the breech, the cocking piece, creating a cacophony of mechanical jargon that tries to drown out the almond blossom, but it fails. The image of the bees and the silent gardens lingers longer in our minds than the technical terms. It is a reminder that no matter how much we try to regiment our lives, no matter how much steel we forge, the seasons will continue. The almond blossom will fall, the bees will fly, and the human spirit will always look for the garden beyond the fence. It speaks to the resilience of nature, not just the nature outside, but the nature within us, the part of us that refuses to be reduced to a function or a number. So let me ask you this, when you think about your own life, which voice echoes louder? the mechanical instructions of duty, or the quiet, persistent call of the garden just beyond the fence. And now this friction between the regimented and the wild brings me to my own corner of the world. Living in North Yorkshire, you can't escape the presence of Carrow Garrison. It is one of the largest military bases in Europe, a vast complex of barracks, training grounds and housing that sits right in the heart of the beautiful Richmondshire district. It creates a unique landscape where the thunder of artillery practice often rolls over the heather-clad moors, and where tanks share the horizon with grazing sheep. It is a place I have walked near many times, and it inspired the poem I want to share with you today, titled Carrow Garrison, March and Meadow. When I wrote this piece, I was thinking about how the garrison has become a part of the geology of the area. It isn't just a temporary encampment, it has roots now. It has history, but it is also a place of transition. Soldiers come and go, they march, they train, and then they deploy. There is a hardness to it, the steel of boot, but it's surrounded by the incredibly soft, rolling landscape of the dales. The river Swale flows right past it, ancient and uncaring of human conflict, yet offering a kind of absolution or peace to those who walk its banks. I wanted to capture the soundscape of Carrow, the mix of the bugle call and the river's flow, the drill sergeant's shout and the silence of the twilight. It's about acknowledging that duty and devotion often happen in the midst of great beauty, and that the land holds the soldiers just as it holds the farmers or the poets. Steel of boot and morning mist, Carrow stirs in soldiers' twist. Where fields once soft in Yorkshire sleep, now echo steps both proud and deep. Barracks rise with weathered grace, stories etched in every place, from training ground to duty's call. The garrison holds and guards them all. The hum of drills, the cadence loud, beneath the drifting northern cloud, and families line the quiet street, where duty and devotion meet. But nature wraps its arms around, with moorland hues and marshy sound. The swell flows near with gentle tone, to soothe the steel and temper stone. When twilight falls and silence grows, and bugle notes begin to close, Carrow stands both fierce and kind, a place of strength and heart combined. In Carrow Garrison, March and Meadow, I attempted to explore the reconciliation between the machinery of the base and the biology of the landscape. The opening line, steel of boot and morning mist, immediately sets up this contrast. The mist is ephemeral, soft and native to the moors, whereas the steel is imposed, hard and manufactured. Yet they exist in the same space. The soldier's twist, the physical action of waking and moving, happens within that mist. The land doesn't reject the soldier, instead it envelops him. I use the phrase "fields once soft in Yorkshire sleep" to acknowledge the history of the land before the base existed, but also to suggest that the land has changed. It now echoes with steps proud and deep. There is a weight to military presence. It compacts the earth both literally and metaphorically. The stanza about the barracks rising with weathered grace was important to me. We often think of military buildings as ugly or purely functional, but over time, the rain and wind of North Yorkshire weather them. They acquire a patina. They become repositories of stories of fear, of camaraderie, of young men and women growing up very quickly. The garrison holds and guards them all. It acts as a container for these intense human experiences. I also wanted to touch upon the families. Catterick isn't just a training ground, it's also a home. And families line the quiet street where duty and devotion meet. This brings a tenderness to the poem. The military life is not just about the soldier, it's also about the waiting spouse, the children, and the community that supports the structure. That is the heart mentioned in the final stanza. However, the pivotal shift in the poem comes with the introduction of the river. The swale flows near with gentle tone to soothe the steel and temper stone. Tempering is a metallurgical process, heating and cooling metal to make it tougher but less brittle. I like to think the river swale does this for the people at Catterick. The sound of the water, the sight of the green banks, it softens the jagged edges of military discipline. It reminds the soldiers of the peace they are ultimately sworn to protect. The river is the constant. Drills stop, bugles fade, but the river flows. By the end, when twilight falls, the duality resolves. Catterick is fierce and kind. It is not just one or the other, it is a paradox, a place of strength necessary for the world we live in, but also a place of heart grounded in the ancient, unforgiving, yet beautiful Yorkshire soil. It is a recognition that even in the most regimented lives, the landscape offers a way to breathe. We are going to shift gears now, moving from the landscape of the Dales to the landscape of the publishing industry. In our ongoing series about the creative life, we have reached a pivotal moment. You've written your manuscript, you've edited it 100 times, and you've painstakingly formatted your front matter, your title page, copyright, dedication, and your back matter, your acknowledgements and author bio. You have a finished file on your computer. The question now that paralyzes many writers arises. Where do I put it? How do I turn this file into a book that sits on a shelf or on a Kindle? Today we're looking at the self-publishing platform options. This can feel like a labyrinth, but really it comes down to 3 or 4 main players, each with a different philosophy. Let's walk through them, not as a tech expert or support, but as artists choosing the right gallery for our work. The first, and inevitably the largest, is Amazon KDP or Kindle Direct Publishing. For most independent authors, this is the default starting point. The primary advantage of KDP is accessibility. It's free to upload, and because Amazon controls the vast majority of the ebook market, going direct to them ensures your book is available to millions of readers instantly. They also offer print-on-demand paperbacks and hardcovers. This means you don't have to buy 500 copies and store them in your garage. When a reader buys a copy, Amazon prints 1 copy and ships it all over the world. The barrier to entry is non-existent. However, you must consider the trade-offs. If you enroll in KDP Select to get into Kindle Unlimited, you must grant Amazon exclusivity for your ebook. That means you cannot sell that digital file anywhere else, not on your website, not on Apple Books, nowhere. For some, the visibility of Kindle Unlimited is worth it. But for others, that restriction feels stifling, but it is a restriction that ends after 90 days. The other advantage of using Amazon for paperbacks and hardbacks is Amazon will provide you with a free ISBN. This is a code unique to your book, and it's used for everybody in the book industry to keep an eye on stock levels for a particular title. If you don't take Amazon's free ISBN, you have to go out and purchase your own ISBNs. If you're a writer based in the UK, your option is Nielsen. They will sell you 10 ISBNs for just under £200. Now that you've bought your own ISBNs so you can publish using any platform, we have Ingram Spark. If KDP is the massive marketplace, Ingram Spark is the gateway to the professional book world. Ingram is the world's largest book distributor, above Gardner's. If you want your book to be available for order in independent bookstores, libraries, and major chains like Waterstones or Barnes & Noble, Ingram Spark is essential. Most bookstores will not order stock from Amazon because they view Amazon as a competitor, so they order from Ingram Spark instead. The print quality with Ingram Spark is often cited as being slightly higher, particularly for paperweight and colour depth, which can be crucial for poetry books, where the visual experience is part of the art. The downside: the interface is less user-friendly than Amazon's, and historically they charged upload fees, although these are often waived with codes now. The metadata requirements are stricter. It demands a more professional approach. Popular strategy for many authors, and one I often recommend, is a hybrid approach. You can use KDP to distribute your ebook to Amazon and your paperback to Amazon customers. Then you use Ingram Spark to distribute the same book with the ISBN you have purchased to the rest of the world, libraries, other bookshops, and international markets. This maximizes your reach and your royalties. It requires a bit more setup. You need to own your own ISBNs rather than using the free ones provided by the platforms, but it gives you the control of a true publisher. For those who find the technical side daunting, there is Draft to Digital. I have a great fondness for this platform. They act as an aggregator. You upload your manuscript once to Draft to Digital, and they push it out to Apple Books, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and dozens of other retailers. They take a small cut of the sales, usually about 10%, but they save you the headache of managing 5 different dashboards. They also have excellent automated formatting tools. If you just want to write and not worry about file conversion, Draft to Digital is a wonderful partner. Lastly, let's not forget the direct sales model. Platforms like Payhip, Gumroad, or your own Shopify store allow you to sell files and books directly to readers. The margins here are highest. You keep 95% or more of the sale price. It also allows you to build a direct email list of your customers, something Amazon doesn't let you do. However, you have to bring your own traffic. No one stumbles upon a Payhip link, you have to guide them there. What I do is I have a Facebook page in my name, Alden Carrow, and I often use Facebook ads to drive web traffic to my books. This can be done for as little as £2 per day. So how do you choose? If you're just starting and want the path of least resistance, KDP is the answer. If you dream of seeing your book on a shelf in a local bookshop in York or Leeds, you need to engage with Ingram Spark. If you want wide distribution without the headache, look at Draft to Digital. Just remember, your book is your creation. The platform is just the vessel. Choose the vessel that travels the waters you want to sail. Don't rush this step. Read the terms, order proof copies. Always order a physical proof copy to check the margins and get a feel of the cover. Holding that physical book for the first time is the moment the digital ghost becomes a reality. It is the harvest after a long season of growing. Now you've listened to one of my poems, I'd love to hear from you. If there's a poem you'd like me to feature as a guest poem in a future episode, please email me at aldencarrow78@gmail.com. That's aldencarrow78@gmail.com. It could be a classic, something modern, or even a personal favourite that means a lot to you. This way, the podcast becomes a shared journey. So thank you for joining me on this journey this week. Until next time, may you find the poetry in the everyday, and I look forward to speaking to you again next Wednesday.